Hey, what's up, everyone? Space Marines 2 just launched, and I want to talk about it a little bit today. So, full transparency, I am not a Warhammer fan. I have barely played any type of Warhammer games. I don't think I've played any Warhammer games, but I've seen them, I've heard of them around. They just didn't seem like the type of game I wanted to get into until Space Marines 2. So before playing this game, I wasn't really a fan of Warhammer. I don't really consider myself a fan of Warhammer, but because of this game, because I knew nothing about the lore, nothing about the story of this game or the history of the game, I actually started looking up videos on YouTube and just listening to videos randomly about the lore and the backstory of this world, this Warhammer 40k Warhammer world. And it's rare for a game to actually do that for me, so I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure people that weren't fans, like, this game has made them slightly interested in what the world is about, and I just want to mention that. I knew barely anything about Warhammer before, but this is like the first game that I played that I really enjoyed, that I wanted to know more about the history of the world and the universe that the Warhammer is set in. And it's rare for a game to actually do that, and I just wanted to mention that here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the campaign, the story missions, and the co-op and the PvP. So let's start with the campaign. The campaign, you take the control of Titus. Titus is the character from the original Warhammer game that was like 13 years ago. The original Space Marines that came out a long time ago. It took them a very long time to actually make a sequel for this. So, if you play this game, you get Space Marines 2, you don't touch any of the comics, you don't touch any of the story. It's going to be fairly confusing because Titus does reference a few things from the original game, and he might actually be in like comics and stuff that he may reference as well. Because some of the things that they were talking about inside of the story, like, I had no idea what was going on, and it was like obvious I missed something here and there. And it's definitely referencing some things from the original Space Marines. So how does the combat feel? It's kind of nice being just this walking tank of superhuman metal and muscle. It's kind of weird. Most games do not play like this. It feels like a Gears of War game, but there's no cover system. Movement feels heavy, bulky, but you also feel extremely tanky at the same time, as a Space Marine should. You're not taking cover behind, you're not really taking cover behind things, you're just kind of bum rushing all of the enemies face on, getting right in there with that chain sword or power sword or whatever you like to use, and just absolutely destroying all of the aliens in your path. And that's what this game is. This game is definitely one of those power fantasy games where you want to feel powerful, you want to feel OP, because you're taking control of this superhuman bioengineered tank. That's how you want to feel playing this game. You're taking control of a Space Marine, one of these bioengineered elites, just extremely tanky, extremely strong, 800-pound mass of muscle and machine just melded into one, just mowing everything down with just giant oversized guns and weaponry. And that's fine for this game. That's what they're going for. That's the feeling that they got. You are lumbering brutes that can just destroy pretty much everything in your path, and while tanking everything as well. I'm not going to get too into the details of the story and what happened in the story. Just know that if you haven't read some of the comics, you don't know much about the Warhammer lore, and you never played the first Space Marines, there are going to reference a few things that you will probably miss here and there. The swarm tech in this game is really cool. When you look into the distance, you're going to see a bunch of flying enemies or a bunch of hundreds or thousands of enemies on screen at the same time. This is really nice. This is a really nice touch. Even though these are probably like low resolution because they're such a great distance away, the amount of stuff that they have on screen at the same time at a high frame rate that looks good, that looks amazing at the same time is absolutely, it's so good. It really tries to immerse you into this Warhammer world and into the role of Titus. So the campaign is very short, it's lasting roughly around 8 hours, maybe here and there, depending on how long you take. But it's usually going to be around 8 hours more or less. I do have a few bosses, few elite enemies strewn about here and there, and they do have some story elements. It's not significant story elements. Don't expect amazing character progression in this. It's like you have big marine military men trying to destroy evil and destroy the aliens, and that's the basic gist of that's the basic gist of the storyline. So a lot of the set pieces, it feels like you're playing in an action movie. It feels like some type of, so as far as some of the set pieces, it definitely feels like you're in some type of action movie and you're just playing the main character for this action movie. So now some of the combats. So in the game, you have a regenerating health function and armor. So by performing certain finishers, you can regenerate your armor and your health, and you can regenerate your health by dealing some damage. After playing this game for a while, you eventually get into a rhythm, or it's like, oh, I need some armor, I need some health. Then you just go find one of the little guys and you figure out how to put him into a state where you can actually finish him off, or some of the elites where you can finish him off. And after finishing that enemy off in a certain way with one of the executions, you will regenerate some health, some armor, and you can continue being an absolute monster on the battlefield. The guns are very basic. There's not a huge selection of guns. It's like, you get a chain sword, you get a power sword, which is like an electric powered up sword with some type of power or something, I don't know. You got a giant knife, and you got a thunder hammer, which is really cool, but unfortunately only comes in on the last 2 missions of the campaign. You have your basic pistols here and there. You got a plasma pistol, you got giant minigun, giant flamethrower, you got big flamethrower shotgun, then you got an even bigger flamethrower shotgun. You got your basic assault rifles, sniper rifles. The weaponry is very basic, and there isn't a huge selection. It's there. You have a few options here and there, but it's not going to be a massive selection like some other games. The amount of enemies that can actually put on screen and you can fight at the same time is absolutely, it's really good. It's really good at immersing you as a role of Space Marine, making you feel overpowered as hell. And you start to understand a little bit of why the Space Marines are actually super overpowered, super powerful inside of the lore, and they definitely trying to take the lore of the Space Marines and try to implement it into this game here. So I'm not really going to go into details and spoil things inside of the story for you, but I'm sure there's plenty of playthroughs or story breakdowns online, and I probably have a playthrough or maybe an edited playthrough on my channel as well. But just know, like, some of the set pieces, the game is meant to make you feel like a lumbering tank, superhuman tank weighing 800 pounds with 2 hearts, bioengineered massive muscle machine just barreling through all of your enemies, trying to accomplish the mission and save your brothers and for the Emperor and all that good stuff. Alright, so now let's jump into the co-op. So the co-op is basically the other side of the story. So during the main campaign mission, Titus will be speaking to another squad of soldiers. The co-op operations missions basically takes the role of those soldiers from the campaign, and you are playing that with either you can play it by yourself with bots, or you can play with your friends, or you can play with random people online. So the co-op operations aren't as cinematic as the campaign, but there is a progression system, there is a leveling system. The more you play these co-op operation missions, the more you will unlock, the stronger you will get, and the more difficult missions you can accomplish. So the co-op mission definitely gets significantly harder compared to the campaign, because there is a leveling system and a progression system tied to them. And it's definitely expected to be played with 3 players at the same time that know what they're doing or somewhat know what they're doing. So inside of these missions, your goal is to accomplish the mission. These can range from like 5 to 10 minutes to 20-minute mission operations. Your goal is to just get to the end, because at the end you will get the most resources that you can use in your next run or your next operation, different difficulty and such. The difficulty actually randomizes a lot about the operation. It randomizes what bosses will spawn, what elites will spawn, how many spawns in the game, how much damage you take, how much damage you deal, how much HP the enemy has. It basically just amps up the difficulty significantly in every way you can think of. Also, on the hardest difficulty, the attacks come out more frequently. So from what I can tell after observing some of the enemies on the easier difficulty, they'll actually like stand to the side while and they take turns like attacking you. On the hardest difficulty, they just go all in. When they're not stuck into an animation, they're going to be attacking you, and their friends are going to be attacking you, and their other friends are going to be attacking you, and the other invisible guy behind you is going to be licking you as well. So overall, in these co-op missions, your goal is to accomplish the mission. There are these things called armory datas. Once you find one of these armory datas, or you beat a random mini-boss inside of the mission, you will get one of these. You must complete the mission to actually extract with this. These are what you use to upgrade your weapons to a different tier. So there's gonna be your starter tier, there's gonna be your green tier, there's gonna be your purple tier, and your orange tier. So in these missions, there are also these things called gene seeds. If you find a gene seed, you cannot go down when you're carrying it. If you go down when you're carrying it, the gene seed will be destroyed and you will lose it. The gene seeds will increase the XP you gain in that match. So if you extract with it, you'll get bonus experience when extracting with it. How you tackle these missions and how your team tackles these missions is entirely up to you. There are 6 different classes to choose from, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and their own different ways of playing them, their own weapon loadouts, and so forth. So far, I have found the melter rifle to be one of the strongest options for dealing with mobs. The melter rifle is available on the tactical and the Vanguard, and the multi-melter, which is the heavy version, is available on the heavy. This weapon is crazy good, and if you're going to be playing these co-op missions, I suggest checking it out, trying it out for yourself, and you will see what I mean. So as far as difficulties, they are planning on adding more co-op missions, more operations, and more difficulties to this co-op multiplayer mode, because this is where most of the replay value is going to come in. The campaign maybe lasts around 8 hours, and if you like the PvP, that could last you a good chunk of time as well, but the co-op is where they're going to focus most of their efforts on to improve and enhance that experience for their continued player base. Alright, I think I covered most things about the co-op. I didn't go super in-depth about it, but now I'm going to talk about the PvP. So the PvP is very, very basic. It's very basic. There's no kill streaks. There's no reason to actually maintain a kill-death ratio in this. Respawn is very quick. You have the 6 classes from co-op, but you have no skill trees, and every single class has a limitation on what type of weapons they can bring into the field. So let's go over the classes a little bit. The tactical has an Auspex scan and can hold 2 grenades. That's it. It has Auspex scan, it can hold 2 grenades, and has 3 armor. So in the PvP, there is classes that have 2 armor, 3 armor, and 4 armor. This will determine the class's survivability, but like the light classes and the assassin type of classes that do lots of damage are going to have 2 armor. The frontline tank classes are going to have 4 armor, like the heavy and the bulwark, and the moderate classes like the tactical are going to have 3 armor. So inside of the PvP, you're going to have the 6 classes from co-op, but they are not going to have skill trees. They're going to have that basic skill and maybe another perk alongside that skill. So like the tactical has the Auspex scan and can hold 2 grenades. That's it. They have a good choice of weaponry, but you have to level up your veterancy inside the PvP to actually use most of this weaponry. The assault has its jetpack. It has 3 charges. You can jump up into the air and then you can slam down, but if you jump up into the air, you lose most of your cover and are very vulnerable, but you also do a significant amount of damage. Also, I'm going to note that melee attacks will completely bypass an enemy's armor inside of PvP, because this is very important. A assault with the Thunderhammer can slam down on the ground and then swing once with the Thunderhammer and will probably insta-kill that target they were going for. The Vanguard has its grappling hook, which you can grapple onto surfaces that is not in the co-op, but it's in the PvP. So you can gain different vantage points using this grapple hook. You can also grapple onto enemies and stun them for a short duration. This will usually give yourself or your team enough time to actually finish it or do a significant amount of damage to them. The Bulwark is your frontline tank. It can only hold a pistol, but it has a shield that can completely block the majority of bullets from the front, and a sword, and also the only class that can use the power sword. And the banner that the Bulwark can place down has a ridiculous amount of armor regeneration for your team that will massively increase the survivability of your team inside of PvP. You have the sniper, which can do its stealth thing from the co-op as well. This is almost a perfect stealth. Like, I have had snipers stand right in front of me in their stealth form, and I could not see them at all, and just shoot me in the face, and I die. And the heavy has its frontal shield from the co-op as well, and has a limitation of some of the weapons, the heavy weapons like the minigun, like the mega flamethrower, and the plasma grenade launcher. So inside of the PvP, there is obviously a few archetypes here and there, like you have the bulwark and the heavy as your tanks. They would usually be your front line because they will draw attention from enemies. They can do a decent amount of damage by themselves when played properly, but you also have your tactical, your vanguard, your assault, and your sniper, which is basically going to be your DPS classes. That's why they have lower armor ratings. They are the classes that are going to flank or going to do the most damage from the rear or the side of the enemy teams. So the PvP is very basic. There's no skill trees. Playing a certain class more in PvP will unlock certain skins for it, and playing a certain class or using certain weaponry inside of PvP will just unlock skins for it. There is no type of skill tree. The only progression inside of PvP is the veterancy level, which will only increase the weapons that you have access to. Also, the arenas for PvP are very basic. They don't take arenas from like the campaign or co-op and repurpose them. They made custom arenas for these PvP arenas. It's pretty fun, but also pretty basic. I can see it getting boring after a while, but it's pretty fun at the moments. It definitely reminds me a bit of Gears of War, just without the janky cover system inside of Gears of War. Anyway, I think I've talked about pretty much everything. Maybe I answered some of the questions or most of the questions people may have had about this, but I definitely did not talk about every single topic inside of this game. I gave you a general idea of what the game is about, and that was the purpose of this video. I just wanted to give people a general idea and my feelings of the game. So in my personal opinion, the game is pretty good. It's pretty solid. The campaign was really good. It only lasts about 8 hours. The co-op is going to be where most of the replay value is going to be. The PvP is there because it felt like something that they felt like they had to add on to it. But the PvP is not going to be their main focus. They're probably going to add maybe a PvP arena here and there in the future. Maybe a few skins, but that's about it for the PvP. The co-op is probably where going to focus most of their energy, and I'm looking forward to the more co-op missions and having fun in the co-op and PvP in the future. I probably will not go back to the campaign because it's very short and I played it twice. But if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave a subscribe, and I might see you in the next one. Peace out. Thanks for watching.
What is your life?
My honor is my life.
What is your fate?
My duty is my fate.
What is your fear?
My fear is to fail.
What is your reward?
My salvation is my reward.
What is your craft?
My craft is death.
What is your pledge?
My pledge is eternal service.